Now is Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman, a Democrat from New Jersey. And Congresswoman, thank you for being here. These videos are tough for those in the reproductive justice movement to address. And so I really appreciate you being willing to be here and address it. What do you see when you watch those videos? What is it that you think is the milieu in which this is occurring?
Well, first of all, I think that this has been a whole environment of eliminating, reducing, making it more difficult for women to have access to a safe abortion. I think that Planned Parenthood has been a target and a deflection. First of all, Planned Parenthood, the majority of its patients have wellness, prevention, all kinds of other screenings, cancer screenings. They have sexually transmitted infection screenings and treatment, things of that nature. And all of the federal money that Planned Parenthood gets goes to that kind of health care. And the people that Planned Parenthood takes care of are people who otherwise wouldn't have access to health care. And so we're not just talking about women and their access to a safe abortion, which is something that has been discussed, determined, and stamped decades ago. We're talking about actually having issues with access to health care. And I think it's a Republican deflection. I think it's a right-wing extremist deflection.
Also, I want to be careful about putting it all on. I mean, so we'll talk as we go forward about the ways in which Republicans are now making use of these videos to talk about a defunding of Planned Parenthood. That said, it's not the Republican Party that sent out these folks to take these videos. And so part of what I've been kind of battling with myself is everything you've said about Planned Parenthood here is true. The extent to which the medical services, the health care provision is the vast majority of what happens. But I also feel like, okay, we also must contend with what we are seeing here. Okay. So even if they are poorly edited, and so I'm wondering, is the issue here about the fact that a shaming has been used to talk about this medical procedure in a way that shaming is not used to talk about other kinds of medical procedures? I'm trying to figure out why we find it so difficult to just talk about this thing.
Well, first of all, using a tissue specimen had been very helpful in research. Alzheimer's disease, HIV, other diseases. So we know that there's medical necessity in being able to examine and research and use tissue. So let's put that aside. So what is the purpose of this? The purpose of this is to further the extremist perspective that they're all pro-life until the baby's born, then hello, goodbye, you know? So this is just really part of their sort of extreme views as it relates to a woman's right to choose. And you know what? I think it's also a reflection of the few women that exist in positions to be able to impact these policies and these decisions.
A California judge banned more of these videos from being released, and yet they're still releasing them. I wonder if there is, and as they're releasing them, you know, obviously there's kind of this growing anxiety around it. Some folks using Black Lives Matter language to actually talk about reducing the capacity of women and women of color to have access to safe and legal abortions, and using, again, sting videos in ways that we have almost come to think of, like the body camera videos being used from police stops. And there does seem to be a kind of odd parallelism that is being described between Black Lives Matter. And it is fascinating to me to watch that happen in our public sphere.
It's fascinating for me that in this day and age, we are dealing with any of those issues. It's fascinating to me that this is a very unique period of time, and I'm wondering what the historians are going to say about it 50 years from today. But it is a period of polarization, of hate, of extremism, of my way or the highway. It is ideologically based without any logic. You know, it is a gotcha period. I got you, I will use whatever I can to perpetuate my myth as opposed to showing it as it truly is. There's nothing even in the videos that says that Planned Parenthood is doing anything illegal. Even some of the interviewees said, we are a non-profit. We're not trying to profit from anything, but research has its value.
Up next, the politics of it all. There may be a lot more at stake here when we're talking about the future of Planned Parenthood. Robert Traynham, Farai Chideya, Michelle Goldberg, and the Congresswoman from New Jersey, Bonnie Watson Coleman. So, Michelle, what is at stake in this moment of talking about the defunding of Planned Parenthood?
Well, two different things. I mean, obviously, it's hard for me to believe that Democrats will actually ever cave, or that Obama will actually ever cave. I mean, I guess you could imagine that they'll shut down the government and kind of refuse to pass these continuing resolutions.
Is that a good strategy for Republicans right now, to shut down the government over Planned Parenthood?
It kind of depends on where they're thinking strategically. I mean, in terms of the primary, it might very well be a good strategy, right? And there's a number of people in the Republican base who are absolutely demanding this and saying that they will rule out supporting anybody who doesn't go along with this. And it's another way in which the Republican Party is hostage to the extremism of their base, because I don't think it plays well in the general election. And then beyond that, and where I think that you're going to have that Planned Parenthood has some real challenges is in the states, when, you know, these Republican-dominated states that are already launching costly investigations, that even if Planned Parenthood has done nothing wrong, just to defend themselves against these costly investigations is going to take a lot of money and a lot of resources.
When you look at the Guttmacher poll, I mean, excuse me, the Guttmacher information about the state restrictions, state-level abortion restrictions, you just see this huge spike that occurs, right?
Right, and that's already been happening. We've already seen a lot of defunding. My guess would be that we'll see a lot more. Yeah. And again, you know, once you kind of start being able to subpoena people, it becomes this fishing expedition that can just be used to kind of torment this organization for years and years and years to come.
So let me play some sound of Republicans responding to these videos that have emerged, and then I want to talk a little bit again more about what's really at stake here.
Today, the U.S. Department of Justice should open a criminal investigation into whether Planned Parenthood nationally is a criminal enterprise breaking the law.
Planned Parenthood is in the business of providing abortion. And what we now know, they're in the business of selling babies' body parts like the parts of a Buick.
I've been fighting to defund Planned Parenthood. I don't think they should get any taxpayer dollars. And we got good news today. We are going to get a vote on this. The Senate will vote defunding Planned Parenthood before we leave in August.
So this, Robert, does not feel like a good faith fight to me. And let me just say this. I think that there is a reasonable and meaningful moral and ethical public conversation to be had between people about the thing that is abortion. I think that is an acceptable and reasonable thing in a democratic society where people disagree. I think it is different to say that the Department of Justice should open a criminal investigation into one of the country's largest women's health providers. Like that feels like two very different kinds of things to me. And I guess I'm wondering again, in the long term, whether or not this actually constitutes reasonable public policy or political strategy for Republicans.
Well, a couple things. One, let me just push back slightly with Michelle. I don't believe that the government's going to shut down over this. Senator McConnell is on record as saying no more government shutdowns, if you will. However, I think this is a legitimate public policy discussion, because what we saw is what we saw in reference to that undercover expose or whatever you want to call it, and that could be a rogue individual, and it sounds like that person probably is.
No, those are highly edited videos. They're not selling. I mean, we just...
No. Yes, they're highly edited, but she said what she said, regardless of whether it was edited or not. And so the context.
But she didn't say anything illegal.
I didn't say that. What I said is that this is a conversation that I think legitimately that we should have.
It's interesting that the conversation is not about fetal tissue donation, right?
Because if
you really find this disturbing and you say this is something that we have to put a stop to, then you have to kind of change the regulations around fetal tissue donation. But nobody wants to go there, which to me is a sign that this is not a good faith.
This is an attack on women's rights. Well, this is an opportunity to weigh in on an issue that they can't seem to let go. I've only been in Congress since January, and I have voted against bills to reduce a woman's access to safe and secure and legal abortions 10 times. And these amendments have been attached to bills on the environment, bills on this appropriations, bills on something totally unrelated.
Right. In North Carolina, it was a motorcycle law.
Exactly. Yeah. This is just sort of an illustration of they're not getting out of the way and dealing with the things they need to deal with, like creating jobs, like education, like infrastructure. Things that make this economy and this country go forward.
I don't disagree with the Congresswoman, and let me just say, as the only male at the table, I'm slightly a little uncomfortable, because obviously this is a women's issue. Now, as a pro-life individual,
Sure.
I have some very strong opinions about life, or that's something that you discussed a few moments ago.
Yep.
But let's put this in context. We're responding to something that happened not because the Republicans planted the story, not because Republicans was pushing this issue, not because Republicans wanted to talk about this issue.
Well, come on, Republicans
reality
work very much in concert with the Center for Medical Progress.
And what does that have to do? What does that have to do with the
You just said that. I'm just making
So,
the point. You said it's not because Republicans are pushing this issue. I'm saying actually Republicans were very involved in kind of orchestrating the rollout of this issue because it's exactly what they want to talk about.
Oh, so why? So let me just pause for a second, because I guess my question is why? Why would this be the issue? Is it? I mean, so Michelle, is it because you're suggesting that it's a kind of a primary base issue? Because I do find it legitimately surprising that this is the issue that Republicans would want to talk about, even, again, outside the policy in a pure politics.
Here's something that I think is going on. Partly, there's been a sense that Republicans have lost the culture wars, right? They've been on the defensive on every single aspect of the culture wars. They're increasingly kind of apologetic and resigned about their opposition to gay marriage. The one place where they are on the march, on the ascendants, where they still have a lot of energy is the anti-abortion movement.
Yep.
And the anti-abortion movement has been key to Republican momentum since it arose in the late 90s.